The visit to Taiwan by one of the most senior figures in US politics has raised a significant question mark. I'm James Chau, speaking with Zhou Bo, a former senior colonel in China's People's Liberation Army. Ahead of the visit, Joe Biden distanced himself from Nancy Pelosi and went so far as to say that the US military thinks that the visit is not a good idea right now. Has Washington and the Democratic Party lost control of one of its own?
I think President Biden was not happy with this visit, but he actually should have done more to dissuade her from making this trip, because this issue is so important for China. The approval rating of President Biden's job is not very high. It is just about 38% about 5 days ago. So therefore, he's not in a strong position to do whatever he wants to do. And besides, this is a very bad example of how domestic politics might spill over into foreign policy. Right now, the United States is not a country that we see as united and strong. This is a country where actually the former president would instigate the mob to take over Capitol Hill. Democracy around the world actually has been declining for 16 years. And when it comes to foreign policy, we actually have seen so many mismanagement everywhere, including on China policy. This is most unfortunate because China would be the most important country to the United States.
Well, let's go back to 1972. The Shanghai Communique is a diplomatic document and a founding cornerstone of the modern US-China relationship. In signing this document, the Americans agreed that the Taiwan is China's internal affair in which no other country, it says, has the right to interfere. 50 years later, have they broken their word?
That's a very good question, because the United States always talk about one China policy, but the content of one China policy has actually changed. And I believe actually one China policy has been hollowed out. Over years, the United States have been maintaining a policy of so-called strategic ambiguity, that is not to say whether they would use force or not if mainland China decide to use force against Taiwan. So such kind of strategic ambiguity actually embodies a kind of self-confidence. But nowadays, they're no longer so confident against a rising China and PLA with ever-growing strength.
The United States talks a lot about guardrails in its relationship with China to avoid, it says, miscalculation, even confrontation. But with the Speaker of the House visiting Taiwan, has it not fractured the most fundamental of those guardrails it speaks of?
And that is exactly the problem. China and the US do have some kind of a code of conduct, for example, like rules of behavior during maritime and air encounters, like mutual notification of major military activities. But these are just for tactical level coordination. It's not for such things like Taiwan issue. This is deliberate provocation, and President Biden, as I mentioned before, talking about guardrails. He should really stop her from making this trip.
The Kissinger Institute says the visit does not heal US-China relations, does not improve security for people living in Taiwan, and does not advance American interests. When all is said and done, are we waking up to a world that is less safe because of this visit and the decision to go ahead regardless?
This is the most unfortunate for me to see what has happened, because China has expressed its good wishes of having more cooperation rather than competition with the United States. Although the United States has described China as a strategic competitor, it has yet to describe China as an overt enemy. So this relationship between China and the United States is not one between two enemies, as we have seen during the Cold War. Therefore, it is in our common interest to manage this relationship, to make it manageable. If you want me to describe about my best wishes for this relationship, I do not have a rosy optimism I just wish to describe it in one word, that is manageable.
Zhou Bo, we hope and work for the best.